About trade, with President Trump set to meet with Xi Jinping at the end of this week. That's when the G20 meeting begins in Buenos Aires in Argentina. There are certainly some fears, and more is being written about this in recent days, that trade tensions could make products more expensive. So as we're getting great deals this holiday shopping season, will the same be true next year? Swiss America Trading Corp chairman is Craig Smith, and he joins us now. And I wonder if that, is getting kind of ahead of ourselves, Craig, or is that a legit concern that, hey, get it? Yes, this holiday season is great. You're getting everything on sale. We're so conditioned to deals anyway. But everything will be more expensive next year if this trade war continues. What do you think?
Well, if it continues, you're absolutely correct, Connell. I mean, things will get costly, and you will have price inflation, and that will be passed on to the consumer, and it's not going to be very beneficial. But I've got good news, Connell. I believe that President Trump is going into this negotiation at the G20 in a position of strength. I think he has quietly amassed a trading bloc, Connell. Think about it. The USMCA deal. They have a veto provision in there that if Canada or Mexico signs a deal with another country that's adverse to America, they can stop the deal. So I think President Trump has all the cards, Connell, and I'm very positive about an outcome this Saturday.
What type of an outcome? What's a positive outcome? Because nobody says, oh, the whole thing's solved by this. Well, I mean, I guess it's possible, but people don't seem to be expecting that. In fact, as to John Layfield's point, they're expecting very little. When you say outcome, what do you mean?
Yeah, and I agree with John, by the way. When you have two sides that are in transit like that, in transit on their position, I think that you don't have a lot for negotiation. However, I think China is much like North Korea. They've been living in the 19th century. It's about time they get in the 21st century. And I think you're going to start to see that in negotiations. I really believe in this guy, Mr. Lighthizer. I think he's done a tremendous job, Connell. And I got to tell you, I'm very positive. The Chinese, look, there's a $375 billion deficit between us and China on trade. I think it can be worked upon. I think President Trump has played this right. And look, people can argue and criticize President Trump and how he does things and how he talks and this and that. But the net result is very good here, Connell, and I think it's going to be positive for the markets.
Well, we don't have a result yet, right? We don't have any result yet. So,
well, that's true, but I think that you're seeing signals, Connell, that show that all the pieces are in place for a deal. That USMCA deal, if you look deep in it, and I hope the Congress approves it, Connell, let me tell you something. That gives President Trump a huge leverage when trading with the Chinese. I think it's a very positive move.
In what time frame? Because that's one of the big debates, and one of the things that hangs over the market and the economy, I think, more broadly as well, is that, okay, maybe over time some sort of a deal is made, but in the interim, there's a lot of pain to get through. There's costs going up for American companies. Those costs are passed on to American consumers. The economy slows down as a result. The stock market sells off as a result. Today it's trading higher, maybe on optimism, to your point, that we get some sort of a deal done. But what's your time frame where you say, all right, we can put this behind us, this situation with China?
Yeah, Connell, you probably hit on the one area that if we could answer that question, boy, it would change the whole dynamic going forward.
But is it years and years, or is it months and months? Or?
No, I think it's months and months, Connell. And let me tell you why. We do have a slowing worldwide, and I don't think the Chinese are in a position with the debt that they're carrying to allow that slowdown to affect their economy. Now, I know the Chinese are very willing to sacrifice and go through pain on a short-term basis to get their long-term gains. They think in dynasties when they're talking long-term. We think in 90 days that we're talking long-term. But I do think that the Chinese are ready to cut a deal. I think they want to see this growth continued worldwide. And I don't think they're going to stop it by trying to get into a big war with Trump. I really don't.
As a final point, and they're already in one, maybe not a big one to your point, but they're already in one. What's something each side could give? If you're China, you come in, and what's kind of the olive branch, so to speak?
Gosh, I love your questions. One place would be intellectual property. I mean, think about it. Years ago, we used to give donations to the Chinese gave donations to campaigns, and they got secrets on rocket technology. Yeah. Nowadays, they just steal it.
Right.
So I think
if the Chinese that though until the end of I understand
sure.
I understand it happens, and American companies will tell you it does, but to get them to actually publicly admit that seems to me to be far-fetched.
Absolutely. But if you could, and them say, look, we are are going to look into it, or just some type of olive branch that says the Chinese are willing to deal with what's costing us billions of dollars a year.
Right.
I mean, you got to remember, intellectual properties is a big thing. It's no longer just Hollywood. It goes all through the technology
and then
world,
we say
especially
we're not going to put the tariffs up to 25% as a result from 10 or something like that. And then you have a minor deal. Yeah.
Well, you have $200 billion that are going to go from 10% to 25%. I don't think it's going to happen, Colin. Okay. I am really optimistic. And call me back next week and either tell me I'm an idiot or tell me I was a genius, but I'm going to tell you something. I think this weekend is going to produce good results. I really do.
Well, Neil will be back by then. I don't think he'd call you an idiot, but we'll tell him to call you. Good to see you, Craig. Thanks for coming on.
Good seeing you,
Colin. Appreciate it. Now, number of investors